Our love can destroy the whole fucking world. Here on America's rustiest podcast, The Pod People, I'm Matthias Van Rossum, and my future is metal.
I'm the metal fetishist, Ben Sheetz.
I am Cleveland Mosier, and you're gonna like the way you look. I guarantee it.
And we're joined by a special guest. My brother Joseph asked to be on this episode specifically. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no, I actually just pulled up in my amorphous metal vehicle blasting some 3-6 Mafia, so I'm ready for this podcast.
Hell yeah.
But I'm Joseph Sheetz.
Well, Joseph, thanks for joining us. We're stoked to have you, and we're stoked to talk about Tetsuo, the Iron Man. So this was technically Ben's pick, but sort of Joseph's pick by proxy.
Yes. I deferred this to Joseph. Joseph requested specifically that we talked about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to open the floor right off the bat. Joseph, why did you want to watch this movie?
Well, actually, it's a weird reason. I've been following this screen printer for a little bit, and he's been doing like a horror movie series run and about a lot of movies that I just don't know and stuff. So I got his House shirt, which I love House. So I saw the one for this movie, and I was just like, why not have the first time I watch it be for the podcast? So,
well, I am curious. Initial thoughts, like how? I guess also, sort of rolling into that, your initial thoughts, like, have you like known about this movie outside of like the screen printer thing? Like, was this film's reputation in your mind before seeing it? And did it live up to that?
See, I mean, I've vaguely known barely much about this movie, which I think was a good thing for me, and I think I kind of liked it that way, kind of going in a little blind. But I think in another way, I've heard about this movie before in the sense of like how just kind of infamous it is for like how off kilter and just like weird it is from the like movies around the time as well. I don't know, it's just really something that like sounded very interesting to watch. So
Did you like it?
absolutely. I think, man, like I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness to this movie, but I think that is what makes it beautiful. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the first feature film by Japanese filmmaker Shinya Tsukamoto. We've covered one of Tsukamoto's shorts on the podcast before, Haze, which was curated by Ben, and that was really fucking cool. But this is sort of, I guess, would be considered what he's most famous for, the Tetsuo series. And this first one came out in 1989. And yeah, he wrote it, directed it, edited it, starred in it, kind of the whole shindig. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely deeply entrenched in the canon of sort of weirdo cinema, weirdo horror cinema. Like Joseph was saying, it's very off kilter. It's very kinetic. I would consider it pretty experimental in a lot of ways.
Anyways.
But yeah, in many ways.
yeah.
But it has an enduring legacy for a reason.
I like the comparison between Haze and Tetsuo is they both start out with, as Ben is showing us right now in the video format version, they both start with teeth torment, like all the scraping metal on mouths and stuff. Ugh.
I find Tetsuo kind of a foundational cyberpunk film. This is right at the beginning of the cyberpunk trend. And what I love about it is it takes the idea of like a cyborg, where like before this in pulp sci-fi, it'd be like taking a brain and putting it in a vat into a robot. And with this, it's like the merging of cybernetics and technology and human flesh is way messier, right? Like it's not a clean transfer of a brain into something. It's gross and nasty and violent.
Very visceral.
Like birth.
And not through the advances of modern science either. Like it's a curse basically in this movie, you know? It's kind of the melding of man and machine through magic. Yeah, this is a tight hour and 7 minutes, 67 minutes. Apparently the original cut was like 10 minutes longer. But yeah, no, I'm always very grateful for the length of this movie because it is just like so intense and bombastic and just like in your face that
I would love to see the original cut that was 10 minutes longer, because apparently those 10 minutes contained additional material to the sex scenes, awesome, and a tap dancing sequence.
It's out there. They released a Japan-only DVD of it. I don't know if it's subtitled, though, you know?
I gotta see the
extra
tap
10
dancing. I
minutes
gotta
of
see
it.
how they incorporate that.
Well, I was gonna say you could import it, but good luck with all them tariffs.
I know.
Getting a fucking director's cut of Tetsuo costs you $180.
Don't remind me. I'm gonna have more rum now. Make up for that. You know, if we had one more of your family members on and we got really drunk, we would be 3 sheets to the wind.
Are you
Oh,
pouring
man.
rum into a can?
Yes.
What you
What's
said? What are you
wrong
putting it
with
into?
Hey,
No,
kind of
no,
baller, not gonna lie.
I was gonna say, yeah. Shut up, Ben. Don't clip Plebes' wings. What kind of rum and what are you pouring it into?
Sailor Jerry and
Ew.
ew.
The worst kind of rum.
Yeah, well,
you
it was
buy
free.
that behind the liquor store?
I am
That's
not
like...
trusting Sailor Jerry to drive the ship on everything, man.
Sailor Jerry and lemon sparkling water. It's not great. It's what's on hand. Okay, look, don't fucking.
Cheers,
Anyway.
brother. It's gonna
mutate
you and turn your penis into a drill.
God, okay, cool. Back on board then. Awesome. I'm good for it. And on that note, I read. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
That was a great transition.
Please, on that note, continue.
Yeah. On that note, my first experience with this movie was reading the Wikipedia page on it in high school, because I didn't know how to take in media at the time, and I didn't have access to the film. So I decided to just read the plot synopsis because I was 15 or whatever.
I used to do that too.
And yeah, I think everyone does. I think a lot of people who like don't necessarily like who don't watch horror movie as often will like watch clips or whatever because they have agency over it, and they're a little bit nervous about watching the whole thing.
You also have to consider that when we were doing this, it was pre-streaming. Yeah. All we had was Blockbuster, and Blockbuster was not getting movies like Tetsuo the Iron Man, Like, it was still the early days of YouTube. It was harder to find, like, full videos uploaded, like, streaming. Like, you could maybe try to find something through LimeWire, but then you're, like, flipping a coin 50-50, 50% chance it's Tetsuo, 50% chance it's malware. So, yeah, no, I did the same shit back in the day. If there was a movie that was not easily accessible that I could not go to Blockbuster and rent, just fucking go on Wikipedia and read the plot synopsis.
So I remember being like a junior in high school or whatever, and reading the synopsis for this film and just thinking, oh my god, he grows a drill on his dick and they show it in the movie? I'm never watching this.
Too much.
And here I'm years later, and like, God, I fucking love this movie. I love this movie so much, dude. It's so sick.
I can't wait to get more into that.
Oh, and we will.
No, I mean, I do have to say one thing before we keep going forward about that drill dick.
Please.
He really reminded me of that Guar member with the like. Way it was just like there,
the blade on his the blade.
Yeah, it was just like that. Or what is it? The 7, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it forces the guy to fuck the prostitute to death with like the spiked.
Terrifying.
Like, or whatever. Yeah.
I think the scariest thing about that sequence is that she's about it.
Yeah.
Like. That I think is the most horrifying aspect. It's not the thing itself. It's
trying to make it work.
She doesn't mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can hope for in life, is that you can find somebody to match your freak, And I think that our protagonist and his girlfriend really do that in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this movie is really cool because it feels like so quintessentially Japanese in like so many ways. Tsukamoto I was reading that like when he was in like high school and stuff in like the 70s, he was kind of like getting into film and shot like some short cinema and stuff like that, but then got out of it for a long time and went into the theater and wrote and directed a bunch of like experimental stage shows, which is where he met Kei Fujiwara, who plays the main character's girlfriend in this. And so eventually he in the late 80s he came back to cinema, and this was like he did a couple more shorts, and then this was like the synthesis of like everything that he had, you know, cobbled together. But he was talking about how like as a child he was super into like the Godzilla stuff, like Godzilla and Gamera and kaiju movies, and I think you see a lot of that mixed with like Japanese theater and even some like early Super Sentai kind of stuff, all thrown together into this like totally insane, off kilter, like crazy experimental movie.
Yeah, in particular, Ultra Q, which was like the first Ultraman series.
Yeah, it felt a lot like that.
Right, yeah? Like, what is it he said? He was really drawn to it because of the surrealism as a kid. And I think that this captures so much of those same elements. Yeah, like, and again, like he transforms into a big alien, you know, in Ultra Q.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, again, it's the body changing and morphing into something greater. Just dope.
On top of that, Tsukamoto, before he made this, was actually working in advertising. And I think some of that carries over into kind of the editing approach for this film, because it is very fast-paced and kinetic. And I think that sort of carries over from needing to tell stories quickly through advertising. And it kind of blends with the theater roots, and all of that together just gives you the sort of DIY kind of punk aesthetic, which works so well. I think the most stunning part of it is the physicality of the performances. They are, you know, almost dancing at times, if not literally dancing. Like the opening of the film, he's almost performing this super kinetic dance. It kind of reminds you of like Talking Heads or something. David Byrne just, you know, flailing around.
I see it.
I was thinking the same thing actually. Well, and I think that is where you really see like the theater roots as well, like the experimental theater, because like I don't claim to know much about Japanese theater. Out, you know, I know like what kabuki is, and I know that there are other forms as well, but a lot of them are very expressionistic, right? Like a lot of them are sort of rooted in interpretive dance kind of performances, very exaggerated, over the top. I think you even see a lot of that in some of like the makeup effects in this movie too, like outside of the weird, like, you know, the like metal parts coming out of people, but just like they have these like, you know, big eyeshadow, like paint on their face and like their mouth and stuff, and it's like that really reminds me of like kabuki and shit.
It's done to a similar effect as Prisoner 701 Scorpion.
Yeah, well, I think this movie is not what I would consider like a traditional narrative. I think the actual like plot is pretty thin, so I don't think this is an instance where we need to go like necessarily chronologically in sequence. I think we can just give kind of a broad overview. Basically, the film starts out with, you know, us seeing this guy who's credited as the metal fetishist, sort of living in a warehouse and just like inserting like metal and sharp things into his body. And he runs out into the street and gets hit by a car by our protagonist, and sort of takes vengeance against him beyond the grave by like cursing him to slowly transform into
the Iron Man.
The Iron Man, a big amalgamation of flesh and metal and wires and all of that stuff. And then the metal fetishist comes back from the dead and is also transforming into a big metal monster, and they fight like Power Rangers. And that's basically the movie. But how that is told is what really makes the experience. It's not about the narrative details.
It's very much a vibes movie, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's almost completely dialogue free. Like, there's a few lines here and there, but for the most part, it's just told through actions and editing and atmosphere, right?
And I also feel like it has like elements of like like modern day music videos too, like going off the punk thing. But I really think that like especially with what Cleveland was saying about Ultraman, I feel like the like kind of like over the top comical aspect of some of the scenes of them like running, especially like stop motion. It feels like it's almost supposed to be like almost like slightly a parody in a sense, not like parody, but like satirical, I guess.
There's a comedy element to it for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, like because I think that like those running sequences are really important in the film. This also takes us back to the very beginning with the opening credits, which features a sort of like slow series of shots of just metal, iron, and wires, and in black and white is the whole film, and high contrast. Like there's so much texture in those scenes. I really love I love the way this movie looks so much. I guarantee it. But the there's one addition to those visuals, and it's cardboard. It's a cardboard cutout. It might be several cutouts. We see it from several angles of marathon runners.
Yeah,
I believe it's Usain Bolt. And it's somewhat out of place. Like
I do not think it was Usain Bolt in
no, it couldn't have
1989.
been. You're right
Listen.
because of the time period.
it was
Okay,
the
my
runner,
mistake.
but
You got that.
It was
Or
his
leave it
dad.
in, whatever.
Um,
It's a Sailor Jerry talking.
It was his dad, Usain Bolt.
Yeah, Usain Bolt. Yeah, I was just being racist. I saw a black marathon runner. Anyway,
There's only
there's a cardboard cutout of a marathon runner. And I thought that was kind of strange, but maybe it's just like kind of part of the panoply in this warehouse. You know, there's just thrown out junk and metal and garbage. But then as we carry on through the setup and we see him like jam that rod into his leg so viscerally because it really looks like it looks fucking real. Like I incredible practicals. And it still makes me squirm like every time I watch it. But he jams that rod into his upper thigh, his leg, and then the next shot is a paper cutout, or it's a piece of paper with a bunch of marathon runners taped to it, like a fucking collage, and then it burns away as he screams and begins running down through the street. And I might be getting the chronology mixed up. This movie is so fucking all over the place in terms of the sequencing there. But I see that as pretentious as it sounds, as like him like burning through human achievement, right? Like we have taken mankind to its physical feat with marathon running, right? Like these are people who can run just as absolutely fast as the flesh allows them to, and he has found a way to burn past that, right? And he's ripping through like time and space as he just like carries down the street at like it's sonic speed.
Your chronology is a little bit off there because like the first time like the metal fetishist runs out is like he freaks out because like his wound starts to fester and he notices maggots in it. And so that's why he runs out into the street. And at that point, he's just like normal running. He's like limping because one of his legs is fucked up, and he gets hit by the car. It's later that once the protagonist, like he's coming home from the train station after being chased by, you know, that weird woman whose hand turns into like the big metal claw or whatever. It's when he's coming home from that we start to get like the stop motion, like him zooming through all of these like little narrow Japanese streets and stuff. And then they do it multiple times, like especially when they're fighting each other and chasing each other later. It's just like, but they grow like at least the protagonist grows like he's not named Tetsuo in the movie, but I'm gonna call him Tetsuo just as short so I don't have to keep saying the protagonist. He grows little jet boosters out of like the back of his heels, so he's able to jet around.
Yeah, rocket heelys.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Rocket heelys. Yeah, exactly.
I do want to go back to the maggots in the leg where, you know, he sticks the metal rod into, because I think contextually, like, this movie came out in what, 89?
89. Yep.
Right. So this is like a period of like huge technological development. And so obviously there's a lot of anxieties to that. And the way I read that is like, his own human body is rejecting that technological element, I guess you could say. And that's what kind of causes the whole narrative drive of the film. And I think that's a great point to start with kind of all the themes of the film, right? Because it's all about the merging of technology and human forms and like the anxieties around that and how it can break down or bloom.
I think in another way as well, like it's like the rejection of like humanity and like technology. It's like the movie, it expresses that humanity wants to reject, but like it's an inevitable thing, because like yeah, and it's like it's just, I think, constantly expressed through both the main character and even sometimes, well, not really as much, but the metal fetishist.
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously draw a comparison between Tetsuo and like David Cronenberg stuff, especially Crash, where like the whole idea of transhumanism and like merging your form with something like an automobile is so alluring.
Well, I mean, Tsukamoto says that like his two big Western influences for this movie were Blade Runner and Videodrome. So like the Cronenberg comparison is there, and there's a lot of Lynch in it too. I think especially in sort of the
Eraserhead.
The dreamlike way that this is all told. But I think what's interesting is like this is definitely sort of like an early like cyberpunk kind of story, but I think that it's pretty different from what most people would recognize as like cyberpunk now. Like it shares a lot of the themes, but I think especially like Blade Runner is probably like the big analog that a lot of people think of in terms of like cyberpunk, and the idea of like stuff like Blade Runner, Deus Ex, where it's
Gibson,
like
Akira,
Gibson, like humans are voluntarily like removing pieces of their body to be replaced with machinery as sort of like a way to artificially evolve the species, right? Like push us past the boundaries of our flesh. All of these stories get really caught up in like, at what point do we lose the piece of us that makes us human, right? So on and so forth. But it's still, all of that is very intentional. Whereas this movie, I think, is more about like humanity being invaded and overtaken by technology and the modern world. Like I think Tsukamoto has talked about that some as like a theme that he went into this movie wanting to explore, like living in like a dense urban area where you're surrounded at all times by metal and machines, and what that does to the human part of you, which I think makes sense for Japan, especially in this time. Like Tokyo is very dense. Like Japan is a small nation with a lot of people. It's very densely packed, and I can understand how living in that kind of urban sprawl like can sort of disconnect you from what is natural. I think a lot of us kind of experience that in different ways. And so like rather than people voluntarily like chopping themselves up to replace have robot arms and legs, like in this movie there's no like order to it. It's cancerous. The transformation is cancerous.
Got the phone stapled on our heads.
I think another way to even like express it is like that they say in the movie is it's like a rust, it just like seeps through the body and it like infects everything, and that's what they're trying to like express with how like technology will advance in the future and stuff. It'll take away and infect the human part of the soul or whatever they're trying to.
And I love that the solution the film presents to that is more technology.
It's surrender.
Better metal. It's just
that's why I say it's inevitable.
Together.
Yeah, it is so funny that this movie is called Tetsuo, because like there is, I think, so much like a lot of analog with like the character of Tetsuo from Akira.
Yeah.
I just re-listened to our podcast episode on that a few days ago. Because that was back in 2019, if y'all can believe that.
Wow.
Yeah, do this for a minute.
6 years ago. Yeah, but yeah, I mean that idea of like the body like sort of growing and changing and transforming at like an unstoppable rate, and just starting to consume things around it. Like, I guess spoilers for the end of this movie, I don't think it really matters, but it's like after the, Tetsuo and the metal fetishist fight, they eventually fuse into like a big like flesh metal beast and are just rolling through the city.
Flesh metal car.
Yeah, like a car, basically. They obviously have covered a car with a bunch of metal parts and rebar and wires and stuff sticking out, and slapped one dude at the top of it.
Got some
And are
24
driving.
subwoofers in the back. Just
Yeah, exactly. But like that's the thing, is like, okay, now that we are one, now that Tetsuo's stainless steel has been able to counteract the metal fetishist's rust, they don't need to fight anymore. Their love will now destroy the whole world, will turn the whole world into metal. So the future is metal. I think that's kind of the thesis of this movie.
Yeah, well, even more so than that, they want to rust the whole world into dust, right?
Mm-hmm. The dust.
They want to embrace the decay that comes with technological advance.
That's true. We'll specifically, I think they'll say like we'll turn Earth into the rust of the universe, or something along those lines. But
no, that's exactly it.
Yeah, it's so sick. There's one aspect of it, of the plot, that we haven't sort of revealed yet. So I want to talk about it from the top. Chronologically, again, like we've said, this movie is very abstract. It's all over the place. It's rushed. It's strange, and it's hard to take in. The last time I watched this movie was like 8 years ago now. So it was
similar for me, honestly.
I felt like I was watching a different movie, because of the context that I had coming into it, and just my own like personal understanding of cinema. I've learned a lot in that time, and so it sort of made it easier for me to kind of understand what the fuck I'm even looking at. It was really gratifying. It was really nice, like, coming back to this movie. But I love the sequences, the backstory in between Tetsuo experiencing all these little horrors on the road and getting back to his apartment with his girlfriend. There are these interstitials that are clearly on a camcorder, and it's of the car coming, and of the two of them, of Tetsuo and his girlfriend fucking. And we don't know, like in the woods, and it's from sort of an odd angle, and we think it's like they were maybe recording it, like, or at least I thought, like, oh, were they recording like a porno together? Were they like, what does this mean? What is like this part of their backstory? And it's not until later that it's revealed that is actually the vision of the metal fetishist, that they were like, that it wasn't a camcorder, it's his eyes, which makes perfect sense because he's slowly turning into like this weird machine creature. That's them running him down in the car, and that it's him looking up through the trunk of the car as before they dispose of him, they quickly go off and have sex. And there's even that really like haunting bit of dialogue where she's like, he's watching us, like he can see us. And like that idea of voyeurism. And it's cool because that's slowly being played back to Tetsuo from the metal fetishist perspective, as their minds, as he's slowly getting into his mind and his body. He's like psychically infecting him with this like VHS vision that he has.
I think it's interesting too, because later in their fight scene with Tetsu and the metal fetishist does some sort of thing where he makes like a stainless steel bouquet of roses and then shoves it in his face and like continuously plays like the clip, or in like it was like a TV or something as well, and consistently plays the clip back of him getting hit by the car and gets like comically thrown like it's Dragon Ball Z, you know. But as well, like going back to the video and stuff, I think it's really interesting the perspective that it also takes on like how you really don't know what's going on, like you were saying, and how it gets revealed later in the way it does, I suppose.
I mean, you bring up an interesting point there, because I think that it really sort of like that is like a really good example of like what makes this film feel like Lynchian to me, is like we see the guy at the beginning. We don't know anything about this dude other than he's like cutting his leg open and shoving rebar inside, and then he gets hit by a car. Like we don't really, other than that, we don't really know who he is. We don't really sort of realize his importance until later. But like once we like meet our protagonist, and he's starting to have these experiences that like seem to be hallucinations at first. Like he like the first one I think is like he's shaving in the morning, and he has like a little like metal thorn or something coming out of his face, and he sort of like squeezes it like a zit, and it like sprays blood all over the mirror. But then like when he goes to work or he goes to the train station, like his face is fine, you know. There's like a scene later where he's like in the bathroom and he like pulls the skin of his face off. Then he goes back out into the room with his girlfriend and he's fine. So it's like,
does he have like, is his face? I thought he had I thought he put a bandage over his cheek.
No.
During the thing. Is it gone at the train station? Interesting.
His
I like
hand
that.
his hand is wrapped up, but like after that scene where he like peels the big piece of skin off his cheek and there's like metal and shit underneath, he walks out of the bathroom and there's nothing wrong with his face. But like immediately after that, like the drill dick comes out. So like the movie is doing a lot to sort of like it's playing with reality and hallucination and dream in such a way that like it really makes you mistrust like what is literally happening in the movie. And I think, and a big part of that also is like while Tetsuo is sort of experiencing these things, we're seeing a lot of like sort of close tight shots of like a person sort of like in what looks almost like a metal cocoon, kind of like it's wet, there's water, but they're just like completely surrounded by like metal and wires. And it's like you don't really know, like it kind of feels like, is that like supposed to be a representation of like his internal state? Is that like what's going on inside of him? And then it's like later it's like, well no, that's the metal fetishist like sort of waiting to be reborn to go back and fight him later. But the fact that like we're constantly intercutting that, and that it does sort of feel like it could reflect like what's happening psychologically like within the protagonist. Like
it almost could be like a Silent Hill situation where he's just being haunted by the hit and run. You know, like where he is, and it's sort of manifested itself as like this car and like all of the metal damages and inflictions of that, and now he's sort of like forcing him and it's sort of forcing him and his girlfriend to suffer from that. But I agree. I love that. I thought the same thing when it was occurring. Like, oh, is this like his internal like thought? Like, is this sort of this like the weird mechanisms of his mind turning? And like, no, it is. It's the metal fetishist like reaching out to him through time and space, and like slowly infecting him and working his way in, as like he's built this like machine cocoon that will like that gives him like the psychic ability to like to manifest himself within Tetsuo and others and anything mechanical. And I love it how he starts working his way into Tetsuo a little bit with like you said, a little bit of metal on his cheek and the dreams. But when he goes to the train station, I love it. Like he's carrying on through his life. Who also, by the way, this is a great point to note, or moment to note that the director was also for a period of time a salaryman, and so is Tetsuo in this film. And he's just, you know, whizzing through the mundanity of life and the intensity of nothingness with his job. And he sits down at a train stop, and he sits down next to a woman who moves a seat over from him, and is reading her book at first, and she looks down at something on the ground that we can't see. And then we see the machine man again, like in the cocoon. And there seems to be something strange on the ground, and she reaches out to touch it, and then she decides, oh wait, no. Not with my hand. She reaches out with a pen instead. And then it gets hold of her. And it's like the machine man or the metal fetishist is like he's reaching out and he's trying to play with Tetsuo, and he's infecting like easier marks first around him. Or maybe she was just caught in the crossfire, we don't know. And then of course it goes up her arm and she, chases after him like a zombie. I love how it shows early on how the metal fetishists can like use technology and people as a conduit to get to other places and through people, and the way he can like fuse with these objects.
And that's before we even really know that it's him, or like, because again, like he's just some guy that gets hit by a car at the beginning, like. So it is really weird. It's like, what the fuck is going on with this woman? Like her hand turning into this like horrible like flesh metal claw thing.
I loved that scene though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, it's so cool.
Fantastic.
Like when he's like, he goes into the basement at the train station, he's like hiding in the bathroom, and she like comes over the top, like the grating over the toilet stall or whatever. She's like trying to get him, but whenever she speaks, she's like very obviously got like a man's voice, like the metal fetish's voice. And so it's like it's kind of the clue.
Well, again, it's playing with the idea of whether this is reality or his perception, like after forcibly merging technology with the metal fetishist by hitting him with his car, is he feeling the guilt throughout? And I that's what I love about this whole approach to story in this film, right? Is by playing with kind of perception and dream states, as well as like mixing media styles, like shooting things of a TV or shooting, fast stop motion collages or all of these different things. It's a very simple story, but it's one that you don't necessarily completely comprehend literally, but you feel it, right? It's a very instinctual film.
I can't agree more with that, because I mean, going off of what T said as well, like the Lynchian kind of like dream state, it just feels like you're not sure what's going to happen next no matter what. And as well, like each event just feels like I have no context for any of this and it makes no sense, but I have to like keep going along. It's almost like terrifying to experience, but you have to like follow through to the end, which I mean, I think that's also goes back to like the whole theme of it too, is how terrifying technology is in this film, but they have to like keep going through to the end and
ride it out till it consumes you, basically. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think this is the type of movie that sort of benefits from that mindset where, like, you sit down to watch and you're like, I'm just here for the fucking ride, man. Because it does feel like a roller coaster in a lot of ways. And it's like, again, unlike a lot of the other cyberpunk stuff, too, like, the technology, like, I hesitate to even call it, like, really technology in this movie, because it's just metal. Like it's not like clean chrome, like your robot arms and legs that make you jump high and like strong and lift things. Like
you do got a flamethrower though.
You do, yeah. You do get a flamethrower, and you do get a drill for a penis. So I guess there is some technology.
But it's all the stuff that grows out of it through the raw metal,
right? And it's
all organically, like it's all organic looking, except for his like just literal like Uzi hand at the end of the movie. But
there's no definable form to it, right? Like it's cancerous growth. It's just a jumble of metal and wires and shit and tubes and shit like that. And I do think that is like you're saying, Ben, like kind of a good reflection of like the guilt of the car crash, like the hit and run accident. Because I mean, like it doesn't appear like the accident is that bad, like, other than like killing the guy, but like, you pass a bad accident on the highway and like you see a couple of cars that have hit each other really hard, and like that metal is like twisted and at all kinds of horrible angles and all fucked up. And it's like, as Tetsuo transforms in this movie, like that's what it reminds you of more than him becoming like a cool cyborg, you know, or like a Deus Ex like robo police guy or whatever. Like he's like he becomes like a walking car accident.
Yeah.
You know?
Well said. It's the inorganic nature of, or it's the organic display of the inorganic. It being so crumpled and loose and jostling and constantly shifting in form that makes it feel like almost like moving like trees. As we would see, many of these sequences remind me of the especially the sexual component as well. Like remind me of the tree rape sequences in the Evil Dead films as well. Those, you know, again,
the shooting style is very similar.
Oh yeah, Raimi. Yeah, a lot of Raimi influence.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Back and forth. Yeah, but I love that about it. And going back to Ben's point about like the frenetic nature of it, one aspect of it that I think is worth mentioning in that sequence we were discussing previously about the woman chasing down Tetsuo in the train station and on, is after she appears over him in the stall and he stabs her in the throat, which again that motif also repeats later. She grows her hand out and stretches it back and then hits him in the mouth, and then he flies across town. And I don't really perceive that as literal so much as like, again, like him being sort of transported through time, or possibly it is, right? Like, and it's just it's a testing of power, who knows. But he ends up in a garage, and then she's over him again, but for a brief moment it's not her. Like it is the Machine Man, like dressed as her. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I'm pretty sure like he does look up and over, and instead of her face, it's his.
I think you might just be racist.
I could be. It's very possible.
I think it's just similar. I think it's just similar makeup.
I think it was just the blood on her face from when he went to stab her and stuff. You know,
the chance if there isn't any blood, I don't know. It is very possible. I'm definitely racist, but like I don't know if I'm wrong.
I will say to your credit, and I think that why it essentially accomplishes the same effect, even if it isn't actually his face, is because like at that point where it's back at the garage or whatever, she does have like the kind of like kabuki makeup on the eyes and mouth that the machine fetishist does later. I don't think we've mentioned
artificially furrowed brow too that I really like. Like yeah,
I don't think we've mentioned yet, but the machine fetishist in this movie is played by Shinya Tsukamoto.
You did mention that, yes.
Yeah, which is cool. And I saw that. I mean, apparently the production of this was pretty difficult. They were doing it on like a shoestring budget with a very, very small cast and crew. And you know, because of the way they were doing all of the makeup, like the actors couldn't really take it on and off easily, so they were just having to like go from location to location in all of this extremely hot, like heavy makeup. And it got to the point that they shot the film chronologically, and it got to the point that by the end of the film, pretty much all of the crew had quit in protest. They'd all walked off. So by the time it was at the end, it was basically just Tsukamoto, Tamaro Taguchi, who plays Tetsuo, and Kei Fujiwara, who plays his girlfriend. She was running the camera anytime that Tsukamoto himself was on screen as the metal fetishist. So you'll see in the credits that she is credited as assistant director and also second DP. So, but by the time they were at the end of it, there were like it was like 3 people. Like they weren't recording sound. The whole movie is ADR'd, and I think some of the dialogue scenes they might have been recording sound, but for most of it, it's ADR'd and Foleyed. But like, yeah, by the end of that shoot, it was basically like one person running the camera, and you know the 2 characters like fighting and doing
In
their
addition
shit.
to that, I was reading. I think we both reread the Wikipedia page before this because I was like, I wanted to kind of revisit that as well and be like, okay, what was my original perception of this movie? You know, when I read it in high school. So I went back and I reread the Wikipedia page, and the production crew for the film. I think there was also a misunderstanding, and a lot of the people thought that they were doing a comedy when they started it. And like, yeah, if you look
I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, and like if you look at like if you kind of step outside, it kind of use like your movie maker brain and you step outside of the film itself and think about like all the minutia around making a movie like this. I can kind of see why they thought like, oh yeah, this is gonna be kind of silly. He's a big metal monster man, you know, and oh, he's got a big like, you know, fucking drill dick and all this other stuff. It's parody. It's gonna be funny, right? And it's like you see the context of it, and it's just so gruesome and horrifying, especially in black and white. Like,
yeah, the movie's not without camp, but also like, yeah, well, I mean, to your point, like, credit to Tsukamoto as an editor too, because he also edited the whole movie, and I think so much of the tone of this movie is informed by the edit.
the musicality too, yeah.
I think, I mean, the score too, but like, I do think that like.
I mean, like the musicality in pacing of the shots. Like, I mean, like it is so like you're saying like the punk music aspect of it, like is very
the DIY punk sort of sensibilities of this movie. Yeah, but I think it would be pretty easy to take all of the exact same footage that they shot and edit it in such a way that this was a comedy. So like I think that absolutely makes sense. Like because it does have those sort of like campy overtones. Like it does, like the end, like the fight between Tetsuo and the metal fetishist at the end, like it feels like Power Rangers. It feels like dude, it reminded me, and it's like I'm not a big anime guy, but when I was a kid I loved Dragon Ball Z, so that's like my big touchstone for anime. And it's like a lot of the end of this movie, like the third act, remind me of Dragon Ball Z, because a lot of it is the characters just kind of like standing across from each other and like yelling and like getting stronger, you know, like powering up like they do it.
Like they do in Dragon Ball Z. Elements are really cool. Like, yeah,
getting launched,
like, guys fighting each other, and the reason it works is like they take those theatrical, over the top, kind of silly, like almost like children's show material of like these like big guys fighting, and they pervert it. It's sort of almost like the sacred, the series he watched as a child, like the sacred thing made incredibly profane.
I can agree with that. I feel like it's like if an Ultraman episode was like really fucked up, like if it was just like everything went wrong. I also want to say that any of those chase sequences, if Benny Hill theme was like a part of it, like it would be a way different movie for sure.
Yeah, the music really does the heavy lifting through a lot of this film, like
Very
especially with it being so light on dialogue. I did watch the commentary track earlier today because I was curious to hear some more insights. And apparently the score originally was going to be using exclusively metal clanging.
I mean,
but they had a hard time making it musical enough. They get pretty close, you know. It's a very industrial score, and the music rips in this movie.
I like the way the composer, I think his phrasing was, Tsukamoto asked for the film to be entirely done with the sound of metal, but I found through my own experience that it was more giving him that impression as opposed to actually doing that thing. And I think that's pretty clever, like, you know, interpreting what they want versus what they mean versus what they really are asking for.
Yeah, well, according to the commentary, they tried at first, and it was just so atonal that they were like, let's do the vibe instead, right?
Well, I think the balance they strike is good. Like, you know, this definitely does give me a lot of like early 9 Inch Nails vibes. Like I'm pretty sure this came out the same year that Pretty Hate Machine was released, actually. So like it's definitely of the era, and like definitely some of that sort of industrial like synth and metal stuff sounds like what you would expect from Nine Inch Nails minus Trent Reznor singing about how horny he is on top
I
of
like
it.
that you could describe Tetsuo as a pretty hate machine.
Hey, how about that?
You
Yeah.
know,
Dang.
he kind of is. On that note, I want to dig more into the extra fun part of that, which is the sexual component of this film, which is
Oh, dear
most of
God.
this film. I think it's time. I know.
The extra component.
The extra component, because it's fundamental to the film.
It's one of the core components, sadly.
Why don't we drill down on that, huh, Cleve?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It starts more with like the hose dick. We have the
yes.
vision before he has that. We have the nocturnal vision of his girlfriend with.
You can say dream. You can say dream. That's what a nocturnal vision is.
Well, I was kind of trying to like also imply nocturnal emission, like that it's possibly a wet dream. That's funny to me, but
They were working up to a nocturnal emission, that's for sure.
that's right. That's right. He's in like a strange, basically the Saw bathroom. And there's smoke and it clears, and she's lying down, and there's a sort of a hose between her legs, and she turns around and rises up, and like she's got all these metal components, and including like this weird like amorphous hose dick, which she sodomizes him with, and that's pretty cool. And so it's again, the machine fetishist is sort of like using, I interpret as like using her form to like get into his mind and to like sexually subvert him, which he continues to do throughout the film. And the way that he sort of works his way into their like sexual reality, I find to be like very personally invasive and terrifying to watch. And it's cool because it once again it falls back to like how it could be like almost like a Silent Hill, or it's really like Jacob's Ladder-esque, is like possibly like a vision or a moral manifestation of them just having sex, like as his corpse is watching them. So like those same memories are like re-influencing him in strange and terrifying ways. But he wakes up from that, and he's all hot and bothered by it, as he should be. And they get into it, and then he starts having all these pains again, and he's revealed to have this, like, you know, as we've mentioned many times now, this huge drill dick. And I love the attention that it's given in the scene. I know that's like an insane thing to say, but like it's hard to describe. Like because again, I read about it as a youth, and I thought that's terrible. But its execution is again, it's so near comedic, and it is, I think, one of the least believable practical elements of the film, and I think that's sort of what makes it sort of work and makes it like accessible for me, like, and I'm not just as revolted by it. And it does seem kind of funny because it is essentially like a strap-on for him.
I mean,
like,
speaking of that, the girlfriend wasn't even revolted by it when it first was brought out. Like, she ran away, or he ran away, but she's like, no, please.
Well, it's we discussed this on the Crash episode, and I think Crash also has like a huge influence on this movie.
Impossible. Crash came out 7 years after this movie.
No shit. Okay, well, my mistake.
When did the Ballard book come out? Did the Ballard book come out before or after this?
That I'm unsure of, but if we're talking Cronenberg, like Tsukamoto is on record as the big Cronenberg point of reference here is Videodrome.
Videodrome, yeah. Which, you know, in fairness, actually, of course, like Cronenberg explores the same themes throughout so many of his films. Like Videodrome also touches on like those same ideas of like being turned on to be turned off, and vice versa, right? That when we are like at our most aroused, we are at our least disgusted, and that she doesn't really know how to feel. She both loves it and hates it, and that just turns her on more. And so yeah, he closes himself off in a room and does the whole "I'm terrible, don't look at me" thing, and she's like, no, but I kind of want to see, I want to look.
She's like,
you
I'm
know,
not,
like,
I'm not afraid of anything. But there's also the scene, like I think right before that, or maybe it's right after that. Again, the chronology of this movie is confusing.
It's really hard to remember.
They're eating a meal at the table, and they're eating like sausages and rice, and she's like licking the sausage like like, you know, very sexually, and it's like, and it gets him like excited, and the drill dick comes up through the table.
Yeah.
Drills
I do have
through
to
the
mention
table.
though that like while she's eating these things, it's just like metal scraping sounds, which it's like
Yeah.
leaning into the emphasis that he's also kind of being really turned on by metal or whatever.
The Foley in this movie is kind of hilarious. Like every time she takes a bite of the sausage, it's like the sound of a car crash, and then she like scrapes her teeth on the fork. It's like a really exaggerated like metal scraping sound. It rules.
That's such a like important psychological aspect of it too. I'm glad you touched on that. That like she's being like really like sexual with the sausage and all the rest of it, and then she eats the sausage as like a big like as like you know like a big finale. But then she
the wiener
starts
in her
like,
mouth. Finally,
doing the same thing with the fork. You know, like you were
That's
saying,
true.
like
She was biting down on the
thing,
fork.
and she starts biting down on the fork and like licking it and like the rest of it, and that's what makes him like do the thing through the table and like really get off, because it's, you know, like, yeah, she's, again, it's the flesh made machine. It's like the you know, like what we find sexual, like, you know, twisted.
I will say, the actual drill dick like effect is probably my favorite practical effect in this movie. Like all the
amazing.
makeup and stuff is great, but there's something that's like so exaggerated about the drill dick that it feels like more tangible than because like they've obviously actually got it hooked up. Like it's like a big drill, and it's like actually spinning, and it's like it's spinning in such a way, like it's kind of heavy and like ponderous, that like it sort of like moves his body around too. And like I don't know, there's like it's funny, like it sounds funny and it is, but like there's something that's like so, I don't know, just like visceral about that to me, that that's the effect that like really gets me, is like his big fucking his huge fucking spinning like drill dick.
Well, again, we talked about the physicality of performances, and like that drill being so active that it moves his body around and gyrates him around just adds to the physicality of it all.
It's like all the rest of the makeup and stuff, like it's just pieces of metal and wires that they've stuck onto these people with like spirit gum and like double-sided tape, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is something, this is a part of the costume that moves, you know? And it's like I think that has like a big sort of like punch to it, like why it feels so real or so tangible in comparison to some of the other stuff.
Peace. I'm gonna write a romance novel now, just for you, and I'm gonna describe a cock as ponderous. I think that's so good because it's true. Like you're right. It's very funny.
It's huge. Like it's a big. Like it's not just like
it's
It's not just like a regular size like penis drill. Like it's big. It's big. You know?
I think it also like, I mean, like especially it's emphasized even more that like it's still around when he fully is like transformed into this like the metal dude.
He's got it for the rest of the movie.
Even then, I feel like he looks especially like the Guar guy. But like, I think it's just like about like the fetish part of it, and like the sexualization is still included, like well deep into the transformation that he's gone through and shit. I think as well, it's interesting. I mean, talking about the sexual element and like the merging of the machines later in the movie, at the end of the fight scene. When they merge, like you said, there's like this weird scene where they're like right next to each other. They're like one arm is fused, and they're like in this like weird like pit of water or something, and just like floating and like sensually holding or like touching each other's faces and stuff.
Well,
and
there's
it's
one
like,
cable between them, almost like it's almost like they're in vitro, like they're almost like in the womb,
umbilical
and
or whatever.
there's an umbilical cord of metal, like kind of connecting them and tethering them in this sort of in space beyond time. Like,
There's a huge homoerotic element here too, right?
Oh, we're gonna get into that.
Like forgive me, I can't remember which one. I think it was Joseph you brought up that like when the metal fetishist like shows up at his apartment, he's got like a bouquet of flowers
Yep.
essentially. And it's like when he's first reborn and he like comes for Tetsuo, we get like the stop motion like him zooming down the streets, but he's holding out to his side. He's like a samurai sword almost, like this big bouquet of flowers. And like when he's standing outside their apartment, he like touches the water spigot and is like doing the thing where like through that he's like basically melting all of Tetsuo's shit and his cats and stuff into just like big piles of like molten metal. There's like one part where it's like everything in the apartment has like flowers all over it, and at the end, once they do fuse, and they're going off to take over the world or rust the world or whatever, like the metal fetish's, I think his last line is like, our love can destroy the whole fucking world or whatever. Like their fight is sort of, again, it's dance like, it's like a romance kind of thing, they're falling in love.
I think going off that, I think it's like his final like acceptance into machine. I think the wife represents the humanity aspect of like he's always like making love with her and stuff in like a very human way, but at the end he's like fusing with a machine and it's very sexualized and stuff. And I mean, earlier in the movie, this is like right at the end of the drill dick scene, he like blacks out and he wakes up to her like committing suicide on his dick, on the drill dick. And I think she was like knowing that he was inevitably going to be merged with the machine. So I think this is like us being together or whatever. I don't know. I think it was just an interesting.
I just interpreted it as like she just couldn't help herself. Like
I think it was like her final like, I think you're too far gone type shit. And I think that plays into it, of course, but I think that was like her final like, he's beyond me now, kind of. He's like merging with this machine more, not in like a literal way, but I think she also sees that I mean, what you were saying, the homoerotic, she's just noticing he's gay, like I think at this point, like he want that metal dick and she does not. So, or she wanted his metal dick.
She wants his metal dick, but she can't stand him having other metal dicks. So she
exactly.
She has to commit seppuku on his drill penis.
Hey man,
that's it. We unpacked it.
Hey, movie stalled, podcast done. I'm saying.
So whether she wants it or not, she dies. But what I like too is like that scene leads up with her getting the knife out after a kind of a confrontation, a chase of him coming after her, stabbing him in the throat, the same way that he had previously stabbed the other woman in the throat, and she then came after him again. And I like that sort of that motif is repeated. So he's stabbed in the throat and he falls to the ground. She falls on top of him. And he blacks out, like you said, and then he wakes up again because obviously, like, he had stabbed the other lady. Like he's just gonna come back stronger than ever because it's that's how this mechanism works. And she dies. And I gotta say, like the use of tone, like too, like that shot of her like over the top of him and just the blood sprays up the back of the wall, like the high contrast, like it looks so good. And like her wide eyes, it really is terrifying. But immediately afterwards, he goes and tries to take a cold bath. But as soon as when he submerges himself into the water, it all just starts boiling. And I love that. Like he can't even take a cold shower. Like it's so he's just so hot and running.
He's too damn sexy.
Water turns like black. It's like
yeah, and that's when like it wasn't and that's an interesting thing. Another like kind of interesting interpretation between us is afterwards he puts her in the tub with the knife. And I thought he surrounds her with flowers as like a memorial to her, is how I had seen that. But regardless, at that point, the machine fetishist shows up, like you'd said. He melts the place with, and he gets in through the pipes and melts everything. And then she gets up out of the water, like a corpse risen, and approaches him, and then she starts bubbling up with metal, and the machine fetishist like comes out of her like a cocoon. And again, like that idea of like of homosexuality and like sort of like the feminine emerging from the masculine or vice versa, and like that confusion is like so cool. Like I love that like to bits, is that like he literally like appears out of her, because he's been controlling people and manipulating others like psychically and physically for so long that he's now got it down so well that he can just appear out of a person. Is like really, really cool.
And who's to say how long he was sort of possessing or controlling her or whatever? Like maybe maybe for the whole time, like maybe her sort of draw to like his giant drill penis was because, you know, the metal fetishist was in her head or influencing her or whatever. I do love that like he's credited specifically as the metal fetishist. Like they never say that in the movie, just like they never say any of the characters' names or anything. But like that does add like a extra degree of like sexuality to the whole thing. That like there is this sexual component to how this character feels about metal, you know. So as Tetsuo, as our protagonist, is turning into a metal man, of course the metal fetishist is more and more attracted to him and wants to be with him more and more, you know.
Yeah, well, and going back to the idea of perception, right? Like when he's having sex in front of this corpse, it's almost sort of wires crossing, right? Like him kind of merging the traumas of that destruction of a human life with the sexual eroticism of having sex, and you know that fucks him up in some ways to the point where he starts getting turned on by destruction around him, and I think that's represented through the drill dick and through kind of the metal fetishist emerging throughout the film.
I think off of the theme of that and like even like the sexuality themes and homoeroticism, I think it's a even further point of just like not being able to control yourself with indulgence. Like it's like I feel like it's like there's so many opportunities or like so many points in the film where things keep happening, and I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about it's like inevitable, and like his decision was inevitable and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, the sense of inevitable is there from the beginning. I think there's like there's never any illusion that he's going to be able to get out of what's happening to him, you know. Like it's like what we've said earlier, like you just just like the viewer, like he's just having to ride whatever is happening to him out. Like there's no hope of redemption. There's no plan to reverse the process of whatever this is. It's just like uncontrolled growth, uncontrolled evolution. Whatever. Just like there's no fighting the inevitable.
Yeah, and that's also what you were saying about like how it was cancer and how he couldn't stop indulging once he got like sexually aroused with the metal scene, which I also have to say, going back just shortly to that scene where they were eating, I noticed as well like he really scraped the pan too when he was getting the food out, and I think just like the just metal sounds of that and the fork, and it's just like how like negative we interpret those sounds of just scraping and just like really high pitched metal sounds. I think it really like stuck with me how like it was like really kind of building up an intense moment, but for us the viewers a tense moment of a build up, but for him it was a different kind of build up, you know. It's like it's supposed to subvert what I think we're feeling versus what he's feeling, I think.
Yeah, well, I think the cool thing about that stuff is that like he's feeling both, right? Like his transformation is not complete. It's like I think pretty much everybody like has a sort of like averse physical reaction to the sound of like teeth scraping on metal or like nails on a chalkboard or whatever. Like it like it you have a physical reaction to it, and it's like he reacts in that scene, like when she's like scraping her teeth on the fork and like all the sounds are really exaggerated and stuff. Like he reacts like he's in pain like you normally would, but like he's also clearly aroused by it at the same time. And the fact that you get both of those like contrasting emotions like sort of at war with each other in that scene, that's sort of like a crucial turning point for him. Like this is the first time that he's like really sort of being overcome by the transformation that's happening to him in a sort of a violent way, you know what I mean? So it's like that is like his reaction to that, the way she's like eating the sausages is like it is sort of like a weird like turning point for him, like teetering on the edge of like being pushed fully over into the chaos of the transformation that's overcoming him.
I also just want to say I really love the different transformation scenes, like and the physicality of the actors, but also like the effects that they use. Like, I think the shots when he was starting to transform right after, like the whole drill dick thing, his like back would do this like bubble up really big and stuff, and I think it was really cool how well they like portrayed the like fleshy weird aspect of this like technological like infection thing or curse as you would put it, and I think another practical effect was when he was pulling out that like component in his neck and it like stretched out and stuff. I really liked the weird fleshy tech.
It's pretty crazy what they're able to pull off with such a low budget.
I think
right?
the black and white helped a great deal, is they didn't have to worry about the color of the makeup so much as just the tone. And that, yeah, I think that in this case was probably like a huge boon to them.
I think that really helps sort of like blur the line between machine and flesh too.
Yeah.
Just like the limited color palette, black and white, high contrast. Like this was shot on 16 millimeter. Look, it's very grainy. It looked, but like positive. That's a perk. I think. Yeah, I mean, it looks very good. Like I feel like it's really a great example of low budget filmmaking because like everything that they needed to make all of this stuff is the kind of shit that you can just go to like a dump or like sort of a like electronics like outlet and just buy like a bunch of cables, just like all kinds of shit for cheap, and then just kind of throw it together. I think they were using mostly like double-sided tape to like stick this shit to the actors and stuff, which it's just like, yeah, it looks so good. But like really what's impressive to me is how much they do with the stop motion. Just because like in all of filmmaking, like stop motion is one of the most impressive things to me, just in how much very precise like technical effort and patience that it takes. And like this movie's very stop motion heavy, and for as small as the cast and crew was, to the extent that pretty much the entire crew bailed by the end of this movie, this is like a couple of people doing all of this stop motion shit, you know? It sounds like a nightmare. But that's why I respect it, because like I would not have the patience for what they have done here, you know, and I just respect the hell out of that.
I think it was like the stop motion aspect. It was comical, but also just like it portrayed the like weird machine aspect of like how choppy it was, but it allowed them to get those effects of like just zooming down the road without having to move
Zooming
their
down the
legs or
road.
things like that, getting launched, whatever.
all of the shit in his apartment like melting into like slag, all these kind of like more expressionistic shots where it's like somebody's face and it's being like swarmed by wires, and it's just like that's man, like that is a lot to do frame by frame by frame.
Some
Like
of the best like looking stop motion elements too are not even just the wires and machinery moving, but the people as well. I love at the end, like, and when things go extremely surreal as the two are fusing, we see Tetsuo's face like bound to the side of like this large machine, and he's inside the glass and he's moving his head, and it's always like shifting and changing, and he's also moving frenetically as stop motion. And it's kind of brought to a complete synthesis at the end of that sequence when his face is writhing around on the ground and it becomes zombified, and then a skeleton it's just entirely like consumed in fully by metal. I love it so much. And just the way that they are like fused to each other by the end. Again, like it reinforces that sexual component as well of like when you like you fuse with someone, you know, like it is a sexual thing. Dragon Ball Z can be very homoerotic in that, like any of these like sorts of, you know, series, you know, can be, you know.
yeah, and at the end, for some reason, the metal fetishes has a gun. So the
That's the shit that killed Shinzo Abe, actually.
I do have to wonder though, like they did get a very long stop motion scene of that car driving through Japan there, and I would wonder like what it would have been like to see that driving through your neighborhood.
Insane.
The weirdest float you can imagine.
Oh dear God, with a gun on top.
Apparently, through a lot of the shooting of this movie, they did have people walking by looking at them like they were insane. Because I mean, this was not like, you know, this is guerrilla cinema at its finest, you know, like this is not like a big studio production where they would be able to close off streets and stuff and have people like staying away from it. So it's like, again, they were going from location to location in their full makeup, like trudging around and shit. And like, yeah, that's one of the quaint charms of this film to me, is like this sort of like epic battle between these two like men who are becoming more than men is just in like the alley behind somebody's house. You know, it just reminds me of like being in high school and college and like making films and stuff. It's like you don't have a real location, so you just shoot behind somebody's house. Ben and I both, we shot films in college just like in the alley behind our apartment. Like,
Yeah.
And it's like this movie gives me a lot of those kinds of feelings. Do you have anything else you want to hit, or is it time to rate this?
I have one last thing, and that is, I think the part I understand the least in this film is during the final fight scene as they're zipping around, fighting. At one point, they become separated and from each other fighting, and a homeless man comes out.
Oh, yes.
Eating the machine fetishist with a pipe. Can we get some symbolic reflection on that? Can we maybe tether some sort of meaning to it? I'm confused.
Maybe that's why he started getting addicted to metal. He just got bonked in the head too fucking hard.
Well, when he runs into that homeless guy or whatever, the guy calls him Sonny.
Yeah.
And so I kind of interpreted it as like some weird like paternal hang-ups, like some being abused by his father or something, and like maybe that's what like had something to do with him being turned on by metal or something. Like, you know, maybe his dad beat him with a pipe, so he developed some weird sexual hang up around pipes. I don't know. I don't think any of that is, like, I do agree that's probably the sort of most inexplicable section of the movie. It's kind of funny though. I like it.
It is funny. It does come out of nowhere.
Tetsuo was just kind of gone for that section. There's just like this homeless guy like beating the machine fetishist with like a pipe. It's just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, because I felt like he was like the machine fetish had become something like beyond, like that he was like all powerful and stuff. But this homeless guy just comes out and just bops him on the head a bunch of times, and it works. Like
some guy can just come along and hit him with a pipe, and like, yeah. It's weird.
But it almost to me like kind of like brings it back to earth a little bit too, and like we're reminded that we've been seeing this like from their imagination and like how they've built themselves up, and like so much of this is unreliable, and that maybe like at the end of the day, like maybe they're not as strong as they seem, maybe they're not as powerful, and they're just being some weird freaks.
Yeah, it's really just Super Sentai shit.
It's like a lot of subverted trauma that they're like just straight up like putting out into their reality. I would say, like.
It's just kids. It's just kids playing.
I don't think you're being pretentious with the abuse part either, because I know that like the plays and stuff that the director did before this film, like involve some really weird subject matter also. So like I think that it is sort of in line with like his ideologies.
The playwright who was sort of like his maybe his mentor or like his big inspiration, like some other older Japanese playwright, was a lot of his stuff was apparently centered around like matricide and incest.
Let's go.
So yeah, I don't know. Interesting stuff. Yeah, are y'all ready to riggedy write this thing? Who wants to start?
I'll start, I guess.
You start. This is technically your pick, so that's
technically my pick. But I love this movie. It's one of the most kinetic movies of all time for me. It's a movie that you feel viscerally, almost more so than any other movie I've seen, just in terms of all of the metal scraping and kind of the approach to filmmaking. Like, it's something that you feel so gutturally and instinctually, much like some of Tsukamoto's other movies. I think this is an easy 5 for me. It's been a huge influence on stuff I like and my taste for a long time now.
Yeah, strong 4.5 out of 5 for me. Pretty much agree, ditto, with everything you're saying. Like, this film is essential in the canon of weird horror for a reason. Tsukamoto is one of the greats, and yeah, I mean, there's nothing like this movie. Like, it wears its influences on its sleeve, but it is definitely like has its own loud voice. Yeah, there's just nothing like it.
I don't see any reason not to give it a 5, so I'm going to give it a 5. I also really appreciate that this film in many ways feels like a Geiger painting come to life as well, and encapsulates many of the themes and elements of Geiger that, for as much as Geiger's aesthetic is aped, I don't think many films are confident enough or insane enough to capture like the psychosexual elements of Geiger. And boy, does this movie do that. So for that, I'm gonna put a big old 5 on it from me.
Joseph, bring us home.
Yeah. All right. Well, honestly, after watching this movie and going in kind of blind, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I'd have to give it a solid 5 too. I really thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Everything about it, like the musical score was fantastic. It felt like something out of Hotline Miami, and sometimes out of like a just industrial punk noise show or something. And like, I feel the way it was shot, it was just beautiful. Each scene just felt like really like you were there experiencing the weird dreamlike state, nightmarish kind of like transformation almost throughout the whole movie.
You were cursed as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like it was a solid watch. I highly recommend it for anybody who hasn't watched it yet. So.
All right, well, I won't be the fucking turd in the punch bowl. I'll bump my rating up to a 5 as well. Fuck it, go on 5,
Hell yeah, let's go.
I don't know, like I'll stand by my shit a lot of the time, but when we've got an extra person on here, no, fuck it. Like, I don't have a good reason for that half star being absent. So
I totally get it though. Like
yeah.
I think a 4.5 is a completely reasonable score to give that film. But hell
Yeah,
yeah,
sure,
well,
but for the purposes of the podcast, like yeah, let's make Tetsuo a golden pod. Fuck it, 5 out of 5.
Hell yeah.
We'll make it unanimous.
Let's
Unanimous
go.
5 out of 5 for Tetsuo the Iron Man. Have any of y'all seen either of the sequels? I have not.
No, but I was at the, this was crazy because I didn't know the sequels existed until I went into
Yeah.
a vintage store the other day and saw a shirt for Tetsuo the Bullet Man, and now I became instantly intrigued.
well,
So
there's also Body Hammer.
I
Yeah,
read
Tetsuo.
there's
Which is the best name of all of them. Like Body Hammer is such a sick fucking name.
Yeah,
I've seen the second one, and the second one has somewhere between 6 and 10 times the budget of this, and it's in color. I think it's pretty good still, but part of the charm of this movie is its DIY kind of, thrown together aesthetic, and when it's a little more thoughtfully crafted, you lose a little bit from it. Like Tsukamoto is still great, so it turns out well, but diminishing returns a little bit in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
I did not realize like Tetsuo 3, The Bullet Man, came out like quite a bit after. It came out in 2009, I think. So 20 years after the first one. And Ben was telling me that one is in English, is an English language film,
I haven't seen it.
which is
I
very
haven't
strange.
I watched
heard
the
great
trailer. It
things.
looks really weird
Yeah,
comparatively
I've
to this
heard
one.
it has some bad CG in it,
Mm.
which is kind of a bummer. And that paired with it being in English, despite I don't think Tsukamoto speaks English.
I'm pretty sure
Makes
it's
it.
still set in Japan, isn't it?
I think so. I haven't seen it
I don't know.
again, but
I haven't been there.
Kansas. We got the Iron Man in the States. Let's go.
Yeah. No, when he comes to America, he's the Bullet Man.
Played by Robert Downey Jr.
Because the Second Amendment.
And Iron Man, isn't that a type of marathon too? Or am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, that's the one that's
yeah.
like the multi.
Cool. Like, so that's kind of another way it plays into that same theme of like running and marathons
I
and
think what's
Olympian
Yeah.
feats.
The theme of running.
This movie has a lot of running in it, dude. Like it's a
It does.
if running is
just
a human
funny-
feat is like displaying like the
more of a
greatest
motif,
achievement of man.
right?
It's just funny to think about the theme of running.
Yeah, well, yeah, ponderous dicks too.
Ponderous
Big
drill
ponderous-
dicks.
big ponderous drill
See,
penis.
the fourth sequel to Tetsuo the Iron Man, I didn't expect it to have the Mandarin in it for Shane Black to have directed it.
Tetsuo the Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next week I think it's my pick, right?
Yeah, it's your pick.
I'm sticking with the weirdo shit, but going with definitely a very different film from this. We're going to be watching and discussing Jonathan Glazer's film Under the Skin from 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. It's been a long time since I've seen this one, but I remember really loving it, and I think it will make a nice contrast to Tetsuo, because this is a very kinetic, fast, chaotic film, and Under the Skin is a very slow, sort of quiet, meditative, but also very weird and surreal film. So I'm looking forward to revisiting it, and hopefully it'll be fun to talk about. But anyway, until next time, until then, if you like the show, you know what to do. Leave us a 5-star rating, a review, share an episode, like and subscribe, all of that fun stuff. That's the best way to help the show grow. But also, you can throw us a few bucks at patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Shout out to our honorary pod boys, Sam, Zach, Mike, Ed, Mitchell. Y'all are the best. We appreciate you as always. And of course, you can also follow us on Letterboxd at Pod People Podcast, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. And you can see all of our golden pods, of which Tetsuo is just the latest entry. Let's go. So for my recommendation this week, I'm going to recommend something also very Japanese, very punk of the same era. I'm going to recommend the band Sabbath. They're a Japanese black metal band, very DIY, grimy, influenced by a lot of punk stuff. They were putting out their EPs and demos in the mid to late 80s around the same time as this movie was being made. I feel like it has a lot of the same kind of punk ethos. But if you got a place to start, if you want a place to start, I say just check out their debut album, In Venom, from 1991. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, for Tetsuo, I wanted to mention, Tease, you got a new TV this week.
I did.
So for Tetsuo, I have this movie on Blu-ray, and we watched it at your house, and the transfer was incredible.
So good.
It actually is part of a box set that Arrow Video did on the work of Shinya Tsukamoto. It has 10 of his movies. I haven't watched through all of them yet, but I've seen 5 or 6 of them, and they've all been great. So big recommend to the box set from Arrow Video. I think it's called Solid Metal Nightmares. All the films so far that I've seen have been great, and there's a lot of really interesting special features. Like I was watching a video essay that they had on the first 2 Tetsuo movies. There's some interview stuff with Tsukamoto, as well as some of the cast and crew. Yeah, just excellent transfer, excellent package.
My recommendation is not very punk, but it is very Japanese. I am notoriously a hater of baseball. I know some of y'all will disagree strongly with that. I find it to be incredibly... Oh, yeah.
Baseball sucks.
Yeah, I think it's boring as shit. So, but anyway, I have something that won me around very quickly on that front, and it is a YouTube channel called Baseball Doesn't Exist. And on that channel, there's one video in particular called it's titled "How Japan Took Over Baseball," and it's an hour-long documentary, just sort of highlighting how insane baseball is, the culture on baseball is in Japan, and it does an amazing job of focusing in on like the hyper-militarization of sports culture. And there's a lot of comparisons with American baseball and anecdotes from American players that were brought onto Japanese teams and their experiences there. And I found the whole thing to be incredibly fascinating. Like, it's wild, like the culture of torment that is built up around that sport. Like, in high school, you're supposed to practice for like fucking like 6 hours a day and shit. And like, just, it's ridiculous, like how intensive it is and like how injury prone it can be. But there's some cool, like, he brings up some cool statistics about like what is sort of exaggerated and what isn't, and I found the whole thing to be just like, again, I couldn't look away from it. So yeah, that's How Japan Took Over Baseball by Baseball Doesn't Exist.
Japan is like basically the only other country in the world other than America that's like big on baseball, right?
Well, now after watching that, they're bigger on baseball. They've got it locked in. They've got us beat. Like, it's crazy.
There's a meme that floats around every now and then. It's like a screenshot from some like Japanese SNES game or something, where it's like a baseball game, but it's got like the American team as got the roster of all the players, and you see like what the Japanese come up with as like quote unquote American names. It's just got shit like Bobson Dugnut and shit. I love like that.
Yeah, this shit's so funny.
Shit that like sounds vaguely American, but is like definitely not. Very good shit. Anyway, Joseph, as our guest, do you have anything that you'd like to recommend that you've been watching, reading, playing, whatever, or that you would like to plug?
Okay. All right. Well, first, I'll just plug my art account. I do like commission stuff, just album art type of stuff. Purple Heinz bottle on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
Let's see.
Things like ketchup.
Yes, exactly. But let's see. What have I been playing? I've been doing another run back of Skyrim, just for fun. But trying to think of something that something new I've been playing lately. Oh, hey, this ain't new, but Bloons Tower Defense 6 has got a good co-op mode, and it's very fun. And that's about it.
I think the last Bloons Tower Defense I played was 3. I didn't even know that they were still doing those.
Yep, it's crazy.
Here for them.
Respect. All right, well, Joseph, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I think this was a great movie to watch, especially for the first time on the podcast, and just having to react and stuff like this. So this is really fun time. So I really appreciate it, guys.
We'll definitely have you back if you have any other movies that you want to cover. Just tell Ben and we'll figure something out. But anyway, thank you all for listening. And until next time, be sure to stay WD-40 so you don't get rusty or whatever.